We'll stand. We'll go ahead and get this meeting started. Ron, will you lead us in the pledge?
Please join me in the pledge. I pledge
allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Barrett, would you pray for us, please?
Please pray with me. Almighty God, we thank you for this day and this opportunity to come together to make Batesville and Independence County a better place. We pray for our brothers and sisters in Randolph and Lawrence counties as they deal with the aftermath of the recent flooding. We pray for world peace, Father, as we are a club of peace. Bless us today as we meet in our service in the coming week. Amen.
Amen. Amen.
Barrett, Nelson is here today, so Barrett and I don't have to sing.
Well, I'm going.
He said he was going to make us do calisthenics. You're getting there already.
We're going to have some exercise today. Now, you all know this song, so don't try to act like you don't. It's if you're happy and you know it. And you remember, we start out. First verse is clap your hands. Second verse is stomp your feet. And third verse is shake a hand. Somebody else's hand. Okay, now Aaron Green is going to lead us.
Way to go, Aaron!
Yeah, we got this.
Okay, here we go. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, then your life will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, clap your hands. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, then your life will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, stomp your feet. If you're happy and you know it, shake a hand. If you're happy and you know it, shake a hand. If you're happy and you know it, then your life will surely show it. If you're happy and you know it, shake a hand.
I think that's the best we've done in a long time. Everybody must be extra happy today. So Barrett and I had a different version of everybody else. We must have went to the same school or about the same time. I don't know. Anyway.
So I did it once and I'm like,
Okay. We have a couple of things today. I didn't have any birthdays or club anniversaries, but DAC-TV, they've been doing some updates on it, and I think it's messed up right now. So if anybody has anything they want to let me know, they can. But right now, maybe another week before I catch you. Okay, Johnny, you want to do a Sergeant at Arms report today?
I can do 2 today since I wasn't here last week.
No, just one.
I don't have to tell a joke now that everybody's laughed. I don't tell jokes, I just tell you stories.
They don't laugh if you don't.
I apologize for not being here last week, but I had to go home and make sure that Star was still in the basement with a bucket bailing water. She wasn't. It was up. Reminds me of that old old song, How High is the Water? Yeah, well, it wasn't 12 feet high and rising, so. David, join me at the podium. He had a mouthful just like I had a mouthful when you called. I'm going to let you do your occupational report to the club today. Tell them about you and how you come to be here and what you do, and you have the mic.
Thank you, Johnny. Well, hi everybody. Good afternoon. I am David Winberry, and I am a native of Batesville only for about the past 8.5 years. So I know I've got a long way to go before I'm a true native. I moved here from Heber Springs. I work at Edward Jones Investments, and this is why I moved to Batesville, is for this job. Some of you older members may remember Susan Reeder. I had the privilege of meeting her and taking over the business that she had started after her health took over. And put her down. But I feel like I've worked hard to carry on her legacy. I came from Heber Springs. I've been there for a number of years working in the restaurant industry. And it's time for a change, and so this has been a good one. I have been welcomed in this town, and just really have enjoyed my time here. So,
Thank you, David. One of the reasons I picked on David today is I have a story about a gentleman who went to New York City, and he went on one of the professional tours of the city, and he ended up at Battery Park. And the tour guide said, now, these are all the yachts of the investment brokers in New York City. And the young man, being naive, said, where are all the yachts of the investors?
I told you, Johnny.
Well, how about one for the bankers? The gentleman went in and was just delighted he was paying off his mortgage at the bank. And the young lady took really good care of him and gave him his receipts and gave him his mortgage papers back. And as he was walking out, oh, he said, I just remembered, I have a refund check here I need to cash. She said, I'm sorry, sir, you can't cash that here. You don't have an account.
Wow, wow.
Well,
We're
there's
gonna start listening. We're gonna start listening to Max. Max is in the know. Okay, Secretary's report, by my count, and hopefully Dwight will verify this, there's 24 Rotarians here today. And we have a couple of guests. We have Joseph with us again from Batesville Guard. Welcome, Joseph. We appreciate you being here. And a couple of students at the back. Would y'all please stand and introduce yourselves for us, please?
My name's Hannah Puckett, and I'm a junior from Batesville, and I'm here from Student Council. I'm Shanna Ezel, and I'm a junior at Batesville, and we're in Student Council.
Great, welcome. We're glad you're here. Kurt has a kind of sort of guest with him today.
I have my wife Laura, and I've handed her a membership application today.
Awesome. Yes. And Dennis, you have a guest with you today?
Yes, City Councilman Tommy Bryant is with us today, and there's a lot of excitement going on around the recreation center being opened up. And he's agreed that if anybody that's in Rotary wants to take a tour this afternoon, he'll be glad to take them over there. So if you're interested in that, get with Tommy right after the meeting.
Great, thank you, Tommy. We appreciate you being here. Okay, Deanna, do you have anything to report today?
Just
For
to
the
still be collecting for the yard sale. It's the first weekend in June. So, and if you need things picked up or whatever, let us know.
Where do we take things?
If you can, hang on to them right now.
Oh, okay.
And we're gonna open the Thursday night before, right, Deanna?
Right, and
we'll
at
bring
this
everything.
moment, Brenda's kind of looking into another place for us to temporarily store things if folks have things they need to get rid of before then.
Okay.
But that Thursday evening, you can bring your items to the fairgrounds, to that same building.
Okay.
And we'll need probably some manpower that night helping.
Yes, we'll have a
Get that set
sign-up
up.
list. We're hoping to have lots of folks. Mark your calendars. Thursday night through Saturday around 5 o'clock. We can use help that whole time. Thank you.
Dwight, do you have anything today?
Not today.
All right. Fred 1 was our door greeter today, and I forgot to say it last week, so he probably forgot, so it's my fault. I apologize. I hope you all feel welcomed at Rotary today.
They shuffled the box.
Next week is David Winberry. You're on deck for next week. Okay, a couple of quick things. There is an account that has been opened at First Community Bank to help the flood victims out in Pocahontas and other areas. If anyone might like to make a donation today, if you'll bring it to me after the meeting, we're going to be making a donation into that account. So if you would like to help donate into that account, just bring it up to me, and I'll make sure that gets deposited where it needs to go.
And what do I do to make the withdrawal?
You don't have an account with us.
Somebody remembers the joke.
I was listening. Next weekend, starting Friday about noon, is the district meeting in Jonesboro. If anyone is interested in going, you don't have to go for the whole time. You can go part of the day Friday, you can go Friday night, you can go over Saturday, whatever. Dr. Bob Warner called me right before I came here today, and they're saying that membership's down a little bit this year. So if you can get over to Jonesboro at any time next weekend for any of that, please go online with DACDB and register, or get with me and I'll get you registered. We would love to have one or several people from Batesville in attendance over there. So if you can go, please let's get over there. The Chamber Expo is this Wednesday at the new community center. There's a sheet going around, a sign-up sheet going around. If you can help us out with an hour of your time that day, work our booth, I would really appreciate it. I'll be there working at 2 other booths as well, but I've got them all lined up, so please don't make me work all 3 all day. So if you'll come help me, I would really appreciate it. Community awards have gone out. Butch helped me get all that together. They've been out in the papers a couple of times. I've emailed them out. Please help me get the word out with that, and know that you guys can also nominate for community awards. I've gotten about 5 nominees in so far, but would love to have a ton more. So those are due by the 20th of this month, I believe. So if anybody knows of anybody that wants to nominate someone, please get those into me. As well as Rotarian of the Year, I've had a couple of nominees come in, but we'd love to have a couple more. So if you would like to nominate someone for Rotarian of the Year, please let me know. Okay, Kathy and I got an email over the weekend from Barry out of Club 99 out of Little Rock. They are needing some help with the foreign exchange student this weekend. One of our foreign exchange students is going to be here in Batesville at a soccer tournament that's being held here on Friday, and he needs to get from Batesville to Harrison Friday afternoon by 6 o'clock. If there is anyone in our club that can help take that young man from Batesville to Harrison Friday afternoon, please let me know. They're in dire need of someone to help out with that. So if anyone can help, please let me know. Okay, with that, right now I'm going to hand it over to Dennis, let him introduce our speaker.
Thank you, Amanda. We're focusing on some economic issues this month. Next week, John Bethel, who's head of the Public Service Commission, is going to be here. And so we're excited to hear. He's going to give sort of a state update on solar power and where we are with that in the state. And I appreciate our speaker today coming up from Little Rock. Dr. Michael Paco is the Chief Economist and State Economic Forecaster for the Institute for Economic Advancement at the University of Arkansas in Little Rock. Dr. Paco formerly had worked for Federal Reserve banks in Richmond, Cleveland, and St. Louis, and he's been with the University of Arkansas since 2009. Professionally, he's written on all sorts of topics, from hamburgers to smoking to casinos and the economic impact, and even animal ID, Tommy, as the, the impact of animal ID on economics. And so let's give a Batesville Rotary welcome to Dr. Michael Paco.
Oh, thank you very much for that introduction. You picked the high points out of my resume, hamburgers in particular. But it's great to be here today. This is, in my 8 years here in Arkansas, this is actually my first visit to Batesville, so I'm very pleased to come check the place out. And one of the things that I like to do when I'm visiting a place like this is I bring my regular talk, and we'll have some slides here.
Sorry, a little bit bright.
Well, maybe I'll detach that. Kind of go sideways here or something. But what I'd like to do is bring a little bit of a local color commentary to outlook for the state. So what I'd like to do is hit on a couple of factors that are important in the current state of the state's economy, but also look at how Batesville and the region are fitting into that picture. And I do this very much as an academic exercise. As I said, this is my first personal visit to your town here. And it's always interesting to see whether what I've dug up in the economic statistics fits with what you all perceive to be the business conditions that are here on the ground. So what I want to do is begin with, I'll conclude my talk with a couple of points. That way, I always have more than I possibly have time to go through. I have lots of things I'd like to share with you. So I want to summarize the main points to begin with, so I don't forget by the end. So my main point is to look at, let's see, that any sort of forecasting exercise is really done through the rear view mirror. We're going to look at how the state's economy has evolved to get to where we are and what that says to the outlook moving forward. And at this point, we can say that during a large section of the economic recovery, say from 2011 to 2013, Arkansas lagged behind the rest of the country in economic growth, particularly when it comes to employment growth. Since 2014, things have started picking up, and that's a trend that's amplified here in Batesville, Independence County, and the region in general. There was a slow, early stage of the recovery, and then some improvement really just in the past 2 or 3 years. As far as the local economy goes, Batesville, the data show, is emerging from what I call the Arkansas doldrums, which was that period of 2011 through 2013, where things were relatively slow here. But things are, as I said, looking up pretty well for the regional economy. There's some other points along the way that I'll just make in passing, but if we look at income growth around the state, the gains have been uneven, both in terms of types of income received and geographically. So there's been a lot of disparity in conditions around the state. When we look at incomes, though, as everyone knows that Arkansas is a relatively low-wage, low-income state, but one thing that most people don't recognize, or what I like to point out anyway, is that it's also a very low cost of living state. So even though incomes are relatively low, the dollar stretches further. And finally, we've got a situation where we've got these what sound like great unemployment rates, below 4% statewide, just above 4% here locally. But I want to make the point that the unemployment rate is not necessarily the be-all, end-all indicator of economic activity. I'll show you a couple of areas where I think it's giving misleading impressions. So real quickly, let me go over the view from 20,000 feet, what the economy looks like. This is a chart of gross domestic product, the sum of all goods and services produced in the U.S. And just to make it clear, I've highlighted the years, or the quarters of a recession, 2008 and the first half of 2009. And you can see where there is a downturn in economic activity, negative movement. Ever since then, we've had a pretty long, steady rate of increase nationwide. So we're now approaching the 8th year of the economic expansion. So I guess next month this expansion will be 8 years old. It doesn't seem like it. I've been getting questions for the past 8 years about when are we going to get out of this recession. Well, it happened 8 years ago, but it hasn't always felt like it. And one of the reasons it hasn't felt like it is that we've never really had a period of above trend growth. We saw this downturn in economic activity and then a resumption of basically what is trend growth at about 2%. And there's really been no period where we rebounded from that recession, which is often what we look for in recovery. So rather than see a big recovery period, it's just been kind of slow and steady, 2.1% growth for the past 8 years. And that's pretty much been the case for Arkansas as well. Here, this is through 2015 only. Some of the data is a little bit outdated. We'll come up with some new numbers next month. But here, as far as gross domestic product goes, both Arkansas and the nation are growing at about 2%, just a little a hair under 2%. But the patterns have been slightly different. Here's a quarterly growth rate chart of Arkansas and the U.S. gross domestic product. And both experienced a significant downturn during the Great Recession, 2008-2009. But what we see for Arkansas that isn't there for the U.S., the red line, is this dip in 2012, which really represents a cumulative 4-quarter decline in economic activity. So that if such a thing existed, if we could could define a recession on a statewide scale, I would say that Arkansas went through a double-dip recession. That we not only experienced a recession with the rest of the country in 2008 and 2009, but again in 2011, 2012, we saw another period of negative economic growth. Since then, things have looked a little bit better. We've been seeing growth at around 2% for the past 2 or 3 quarters. And that's really is my outlook for the future, is to remain growing at about that 2% plus or minus rate. Now, around the state, there's considerable disparity in outcomes. It's not even growth all around the state. In fact, here is the 8 metropolitan areas which have at least some share of their territory within the state of Arkansas, and a wide range of experiences here. Fayetteville is up 28.5% from pre-recession levels in terms of economic activity. At the other extreme, Pine Bluff is down nearly 16% compared to 2007 of overall economic activity, and a lot of variation, a lot of range in between those, with Little Rock, Jonesboro, Hot Springs right around the middle, having just about recovered to where we have the same level of output as we did 8 years ago, or actually more like 10 years ago before the recession hit. Now, before I focus in too narrowly on Batesville and what economists call the Batesville micropolitan area, which is Independence County, I want to talk a little bit about the broader region in which your community sits. And here's a map of the 8 planning and development districts around the state of Arkansas. These were devised way back decades ago, and it's really kind of surprising that they still have relevance today, but they're a little bit bigger than what we would identify as labor sheds or economic regions by themselves, being only 8 of them. At IEA a few years back, we did a labor shed analysis where we looked at commuter flows of workers across county lines and came up with this fancy map with arrows and dashed lines and dotted lines and colors. And basically what it shows is that really the northern half of the White River Planning Development District is an economic region in and of itself, and that consists of Independence County along with Stone, Izard, Fulton, and Sharp counties. So while there's certainly flows in economic terms to the Jonesboro region and to central Arkansas, back and forth, there is kind of this labor shed view of this region that I think encompasses that 5-county area. Now, let's say about that 5-county area. Well, I'm going to focus mostly on more locally Independence County, but I think from the standpoint of economic development, it makes sense to think in terms of a region rather than just a specific city, because if you're looking to, say, attract employers to the area, it's a lot easier to say, we've got a region that has a population of a lot higher, 80,000 instead of 10,000 in a local community. You can have greater economies of scale in trying to sell community. So, speaking of population, here's the very big, long picture view of growth here in Independence County and Batesville. I'm standing in the way of the line here, but you can see, without getting too much into the growth rates, that Batesville has been growing continuously since 1830. Really without interruption, except for a little bit of a break in the 1950s and 60s. Independence County in particular experienced a population decline, but things have been growing positively since then. And that's significant because there aren't a whole lot of counties in Arkansas that are growing in population. Here is the 5-county region, and of these 5, we have only Independence and Sharp counties, or Stone County, sorry, have shown any expansion at all in population. 0.1% increase over the past 6 years in population for the whole 5-county region. And that's considerably less than Arkansas or the United States. And you might think that, well, that bodes ill for the region. But actually, if you look around the state, growth rates are negative in 51 of Arkansas's 75 counties. That is, in the period from 2010 to 2015, population has contracted in over 2/3 of Arkansas's counties. So there's only been 24 counties that are actually growing into positive. And Independence is one of them. Most of the other counties that are growing are in metropolitan areas, so that's another unique feature of the growth we see here in Independence County. Looking at the characteristics of the region, about 40% of the population of the 5 county region is in Independence County, so it clearly dominates the region itself. Even more so when you look at jobs, so 57% of all the jobs in the 5 county region are within Independence County. So for the most part, when I'm talking about the regional economy, I'm going to be talking about Independence, but every once in a while, I'll bring up some of the surrounding communities as well. Here's a chart of industry concentrations. The green bars are for Independence County, the red bars for Arkansas. And basically, the idea here is that the longer the bar is, the more concentrated employment is in that industry. So what we can see in this diagram is that natural resources and mining is a little bit more highly concentrated for both Arkansas and Independence County than is the national average. That's why it's above 1. Manufacturing, even more so. Manufacturing has very highly concentrated employment statistics in Batesville, Independence County in general. Transportation and warehousing is another one that's higher than average. Utilities ends up going off the scale. I'm not sure what that is, but it's a small component of overall employment anyway. Education and health services is the other one where we see high concentration of employment, and that bodes well for overall economic growth because education and particularly healthcare are growth industries. That's where we're seeing most hiring going on, both nationally, statewide, and locally for that matter. Okay, moving to personal income. This is another very broad indicator of economic activity, and overall, it's like Arkansas and the U.S. are doing about the same level of performance. About 4.3% growth for the nation, 4.1% for Arkansas. One thing to bear in mind is that these aren't adjusted for inflation. So over the course of the past, say, 10 years, 7 years, we've seen 10% increase in prices, about a 1.5% inflation rate on average. So these growth rates really translate to under 3%, 2.9 or 2.6%, somewhere in there, of real purchasing power and personal income, which isn't all that rapid. But again, it's in that 2 to 3% range that I'm seeing the trend where it exists now and where it's likely to continue. When we compare personal income for U.S., Arkansas, and then throw in Independence County, we see there's been a little shortfall in income growth here. Part of that is the population growth has been slower in Independence County than the rest of the state, and that plays a factor. We're adding up everyone's income here. If the population growth is smaller, you're going to see less growth. But overall, Independence County has been growing at about 1.8% since the trough of the recession. So you take off about 1.5% inflation, and we're talking less than 1.5% growth in real purchasing power of incomes here in Independence County. Now, one of the things I've been noting about the personal income growth is while Arkansas on paper looks like we've been doing just as good as the rest of the country, the composition of that income growth has been skewed in such a way that not everyone's feeling the expansion of incomes. Matter of fact, dividends, interest, and rent is one of the fastest growing components of income since the recession hit, and that's particularly true for Arkansas. That has been growing at 5.8%, nearly 6% growth since the recession, compared to only about 5% for the U.S. So this has been a much larger component of incomes in Arkansas, and it's not nearly as widely felt as the other big component of income, wages and salaries. And this shows the opposite story, that wages and salaries have been growing more slowly in Arkansas than the rest of the country. So about 3% compared to 4%. So what that means is that the income gains haven't been shared broadly across the economy. That is where most families get most of their income from, wages, salaries, things like that. And so as a result, we've seen weakness in retail spending that seems out of line with personal income. We've seen these strong gains in personal income, but it turns out a lot of those gains are coming in the form of dividends, interest, and rent. So that if you earn your income by owning capital, by being a landlord, owning stocks and bonds, you're doing okay. If you're counting on wage and salary increases, it's really the slow employment growth that's been holding that component back. Now, as it turns out, in Independence County, we haven't been seeing the same pattern. That is, here's the dividends, interest, and rent. Certainly not the huge gains that we've seen in Arkansas or even the U.S. So more modest increase in this component of income. So it hasn't dominated the income growth as it has statewide. And for that matter, the wages and salaries also haven't kept pace with the state. Even though wages and salary growth in Arkansas have been slower than the national average, it's been even slower in Independence County. About, let's say again, 1.8%, which is barely above the inflation rate. So as a result, and here's that table, you can look at it later, a bunch of numbers here. The point is that wages and salaries have accounted for nearly half of all income growth nationwide, and that's helped to support retail spending across the nation. But it's only been 36% in Arkansas and 40% here in Batesville or Independence County. So that's not as skewed as it is for the state, but that has played a factor in supporting spending. A couple more things while we're on the subject of personal income. I mentioned I was going to talk about salaries and as well as the cost of living. And here is per capita personal income. It's one good measure of overall well-being of an economy. Take the total income divided by the number of people. And U.S. is about 48,000 here as of 2015. It's the most recent data we have. Arkansas, about 38,000, about 80% of the national average is where our incomes are. Independence County, about 32,500, or about 2/3 of the levels of income for the nation as a whole. So considerably lower income than the national average. Now, the thing is, though, that prices are also lower in Arkansas. And as a matter of fact, oops, yeah, it's just water. We didn't get any papers. All right. Whoops. Where do we end up? Okay, a couple more. Okay, so here's prices. These are some new data that came up from the Bureau of Economic Analysis. Really interesting stuff. Here's the most expensive and least expensive places in America to live. The most expensive place is District of Columbia, where prices are 18% above the national average. The least expensive place to live is Mississippi. It's marked off the chart there. But the second least expensive place to live is Arkansas. So this is one of those cases where we don't necessarily say, thank goodness for Mississippi. Actually, it would be better if we had lower prices. But basically, prices in Arkansas are 12.5% below the national average. So that means your dollar goes 12.5% further than it would if you lived in an average American city. And a lot further than that than if you lived in District of Columbia, Hawaii, New York, New Jersey, places like that. Non-metro areas of the state are even more. We're 15% below the national average. And that's what I'm going to use to calculate real incomes in Independence County. But that's kind of an underestimate because the least expensive metropolitan area in America to live is Jonesboro, just down the way here. So I would say that among non-metropolitan regions of the state, that probably the cost of living here in Independence is below the average non-metropolitan area in the state. So probably around 15%. But in any case, here's the chart I showed you before, where Batesville or Independence County is about 2/3 of the national income levels. Once you adjust for prices, it's about 80%. So that makes a difference. So adjusted for prices, spending prices our incomes are about 80% of the national average here. In Independence County, about 91% statewide. So the disparity in incomes isn't nearly as large as it appears in dollar terms once you account for differences in prices. And most of this is in rents and housing costs, is where Arkansas benefits by having lower prices. Okay, so I mentioned that there's been this disparity in income gains. So there's been big gains in dividends, interest, and rent, not so much in wages and salaries, and that's had a depressing effect on taxable sales or spending in general. I wish there were some good measures of retail spending at the state level or even local level, but there isn't. So we use tax statistics to come up with what people are spending. If we know how much taxes are being paid and what the tax rate is, we can back out how much is being spent. And here we have two measures. One doesn't include gasoline, one that's closer to the national level of retail spending that does include gasoline. And it looks like pretty much the same pattern that we've seen in all the other statistics, a downturn during the recession, steady, slow recovery. The problem is the growth rates have been slow. We've really only seen about 3% growth in retail sales, whether you're including gasoline or not. And once you adjust for inflation, that really amounts to about 1.3 or 1.6, about 1.5% growth after adjusting for inflation. And so we're basically just now getting back to total spending about the same level as it was in 2008 before the recession brought on a downturn. So we're just now recovering in terms of retail sales. And this is really the reason this slow expansion we've seen, especially over the past year or so, is the reason that the governor had to cut the budget by, I don't know, what was it, $50, $70 million, something like that for this year, because retail sales, particularly sales tax receipts by the state, have been growing more slowly than were expected, especially the latter part of 2016. And here, comparing U.S. retail sales to our Arkansas taxable sales, including gasoline, they're not exactly the same concept, but you can see that Arkansas is lagging way behind the rest of the nation. Now, one of the differences here is that U.S. retail sales, they make an effort to include internet spending, e-commerce. That wouldn't be included in our Arkansas taxable sales if you're buying from a vendor that doesn't charge sales taxes. So that to the extent that I did some calculations that if Arkansans spend as much on the internet as the rest of the country does, which is about 8% of total retail spending, and if it's all from vendors that don't charge sales tax, that would make up about a third of the gap here. So those are pretty extreme assumptions, and it doesn't even make up for it. So clearly, we're lagging behind the rest of the nation of consumer spending. When it comes to local economic conditions, here I have Batesville and Independence charted separately, and these adjust for changes in the tax rates. But there was this long period of really stagnant growth from about 2010 through 2013, where a lot of fluctuations, but no real trend in overall retail sales growth until really the past 2.5 years. And so for both very locally, Batesville itself and Independence County, we have seen a sharp increase in sales over the past 2 to 3 years. And this is really one of the pictures that I think summarizes my summary at the beginning, where I said that that long, slow period of growth that we saw from 2011 through 2014 has been even more exaggerated here locally, whereas spending started to pick up in 2013, 2014 a little bit. Statewide, it didn't happen locally here until more recently, 2014 or even in 2015. But it's been a sharp rebound. Home sales is another indicator of, well, frankly, optimism. If people are making a major purchase like a home, that means they have a pretty good outlook about economic activity. And we saw a long period of really sales going nowhere. Here were the two home buyer tax credits that brought some people into the market temporarily. But once those dissipated, we had another period of flat, zero growth. But really double-digit growth over the past 4 years. So sharp recovery in home sales. A lot of that's happening in Northwest Arkansas, where they had a big crash with the rest of the country. Not so much locally. Really, we can see no sign of a crash in 2009 in home sales. This top line is home sales in Independence County. Not a whole lot of trend there, but from 2012 to 2016, certainly an improvement in conditions. More homes sold last year than there were 4 years ago. And this really big pickup in Sharp County. Maybe someone can tell me there's some big development in Sharp County going on that might account for that. I don't know, it could just be the realtor's data. I don't ever always trust them very much. But anyway, certainly no negative trends here. Things are improving a little bit. Now, the final things I want to talk about, unemployment and employment, the things that matter most to most households, the things that are most tangible about economic activity. Do you have a job or not? That's what really brings it home. Here, the unemployment rate in the U.S. and Arkansas has been coming down pretty much steadily since 2012. Remained elevated for much of 2011 and 2012, but has been coming down steadily. Now in Arkansas, we're at a historical low, 3.6%, I think is the latest number here. I have to look it up because it's so low I can't believe it, literally. Yeah, that's the lowest unemployment rate recorded in Arkansas history, at least going back to 1976 when they started making these statistics, about a percentage point higher for the U.S. A lot of variation around the state here in the metropolitan areas. We range anywhere from about 5% in Memphis, Pine Bluff, and Texarkana, down to less than 3% in Fayetteville, and everything in between. And here is Independence County, where seasonally adjusted the data and make it comparable with the U.S. And here again, we see that while the unemployment rate came down a little bit and stagnated and then started coming down later in 2013, 2014, it really stayed elevated here locally for much longer than it did statewide. So we had unemployment rates in the 9 to 10% range right up until through 2013, and even into 2014. But then we see these dramatic declines, and the last observation on here for Independence County is 4.2%. So just a little bit above the state average, a level that most economists would consider full employment. So there's certainly nothing to complain about, a little bit above 4%, but been coming down dramatically over the past couple of years. Now, here's part of my explanation for why I want to say that the unemployment rate isn't necessarily a great indicator of economic activity. Yes, it's good that we have such a low unemployment rate, but look what happened during those years when the unemployment rate was stuck at 9 to 10% here in Independence County, and it was stuck at about 8% statewide, is we experienced this big downturn in labor force participation. And that's even more remarkable here in Independence County, a dramatic decline in labor force. People were simply leaving the workforce. Now, whether that's retirement or going back to school or just dropping out of the labor force for one reason or another, it's not entirely clear, but that's been an important factor. If you look at participation rates, the percentage of people who are actually either looking for a job or have a job, it fell by 5% since the recession until sometime last year. That's 5% of all Arkansans decided they're not going to work anymore for one reason or another. That's a big impact on the state's economy. And that's had an impact on the unemployment rate, because now, instead of calling those people unemployed or employed, they're no longer even counted when we calculate the unemployment rates. And so I did this little experiment. I thought, well, okay, suppose that the participation rate had stayed at 63%, where it was before the recession hit, and didn't decline these 5 percentage points over time. And we counted all those people who dropped out of the labor force as being unemployed instead of just gone. This orange line would be Arkansas's unemployment rate. And so we would have reached a peak of about 16% back in 2014, and right now we'd be at about 12% unemployment if all those people had not dropped out of the labor force. And as we saw from this chart here for Independence County, the decline in labor force participation here is being even more dramatic than statewide. So a lot of the low unemployment rate we see now is simply because people are looking for a job, and so they're not counted as unemployed. So that's the reason I say that the unemployment rate isn't a very good indicator. What's a better indicator is payroll employment growth. If you look at how many people have jobs, that's a better indication of how the state of the economy. And here again, you can see what I call the Arkansas doldrums, pretty much flat employment growth from 2011 through 2013, and a pickup in 2014 and beyond. So what we're seeing here is a growth of about 1.7% in employment, which is not bad. Add productivity on there, and we're looking at 2+% economic growth, which is about where my outlook is for continuing in the future. A little bit higher for the U.S., 1.9%, but it's been steady and consistent, not this doldrums and then pickup. Independence County, here, this is the time when we saw this labor force contraction. Employment was falling. So really, well, the trend from 2005 until just a couple of years ago was negative for employment here in the Batesville micropolitan area. But we've seen a really big increase in the past 2 years, and this is my projection for 2016. We don't have complete data yet, but my estimate is that we'll see growth right about up to there. So where we stand right now is 4% below where the economy was before the recession, and that's about the same. Looking statewide, this is the range of employment growth around the state. Fayetteville has grown over 20%. Pine Bluff has contracted by 12%. Batesville is right about in the middle here in Hot Springs, so about 96%, just below Texarkana and Hot Springs. So right in the middle of the pack is where the employment growth has been. But that's been a very sharp rebound coming from down here to up here in the past 2 years. So the outlook has been very much improved here locally over the past year or two. Total covered employment, here it includes Independence County and the 5-county region, because Independence County accounts for 57% of the jobs. That's going to dominate it. The 5-county region, we see Stone County has shrank considerably. Independence County is where we see most of the gains in the past couple of years. I'll leave these charts for somebody if you would like to look at them at your leisure later. Feel free to do so. Retail employment, we've seen strong gains here all across the state and in Independence County. So retail is one area where Arkansas is growing in employment terms faster than the rest of the country, even though retail sales are lagging behind, so that's kind of strange. Construction employment has been very slow to recover in Arkansas. It never really hit as much as nationwide, but we're starting to recover a little bit in Arkansas and considerably in Independence County, this green line, big gains. Again, in the past 2 years, things are looking up. Well, that's 2013 and 2015. Manufacturing employment is down everywhere. That's a long-term trend. It's not going to be reversed anytime soon. The good news is we've seen an uptick in 2015, and what information we do have on 2016 suggests that that's continuing. So it looks like manufacturing employment has at least bottomed out. And finally, healthcare employment, one of the strongest growing sectors on any level. Baby boomers are aging, retiring, demanding more medical services. This is a job growth area for the future. And we've seen pretty strong growth in Independence County right up until 2012, 2013. A little bit of a contraction, but then a pickup in 2015, and that I'm sure it has continued on to 2016. And this is almost kind of guesswork, because actually the level of healthcare employment in Independence County was low enough that it wasn't even reported by the Bureau of Labor Statistics until 2010, and it's been pretty rapid growth since then. But overall, if you look at communities around the state that are growing and have a healthy rate of economic growth, it's those that have hospitals and other medical facilities. That's where the job growth is happening. And so that's my view of the state economy and the local economy and the sectors involved here. I don't know if we have enough time for questions, but you can always look at more at my blog, ArkansasEconomist.com. Put a little blatant plug in there for that, where I update all the charts and graphs and things like that. And if we do have a minute for questions, I'd be happy to entertain any.
You alluded to the spending cuts by the state. Do you think the income tax cut, when was it, last legislative session, contributed to the shortfall?
Well, the uncertainty around the tax cut certainly contributed to the forecast error. Talking about adjusting the budget by $50–70 million is really a pretty minuscule change, and I commend the forecaster at the FNA for coming as close as he did on this. But it turns out that really it's the sales tax growth has been slower than expected, and maybe the income tax impact of the income tax cut was overestimated as well, because we're seeing as an increase in refunds coming back this April, which is more than was expected. So people were having too much withheld last year after accounting for the tax cut. But again, it wasn't a huge tax cut, but I think it was mostly the shortfall in sales tax, which we're seeing as a combination of overall demand and to some extent the fact that you can buy things on the internet without paying sales tax in some cases.
Why do you think there's so many in the legislature that are opposed to putting sales tax on the internet sales?
Well, you know, there's a big contingent of citizens who see it as a new tax and are therefore opposed to it by, you know, taxed enough already kind of attitude. You know, the way I look at it is, you know, you're required every April to fill in this form and declare the taxes that you didn't pay on out-of-state purchases, and I'm sure you all do that, but not everyone does. So it really isn't a new tax, it's just a new collection mechanism, and I think that's an important point to consider. But I certainly am sympathetic and understand the point of view of citizens who say, we don't want any more taxes, we've got enough of them already. I think that's what the legislators are responding to, those things they're hearing from their constituents. Well, I know you're all anxious to get back to work. Thank you all for today.
We really appreciate you coming today, and I failed to bring a book with me, but we were going to get a book and donate it to the Independence County Library in your name for speaking to us today. So thank you very much for coming. We really appreciate you. Okay, Dwight, do you do a joker draw for us real fast?
Yeah, we had $11 off, and then I think the number increased by 1 to 25 after Steve came in.
Okay.
2 to 5.
Okay, 865766.
Whoever was right after me.
766.
You said 766.
Yes, 865766.
Yeah, maybe I'll get my money back.
Okay.
While he's drawing, just a reminder, if you want to donate to help the flood victims, just bring that up to me today.
3.
Figure it 3. All right, okay, we're out. We'll keep going till we get the joker. Okay, donations for the flood victims. If you want to donate something, just bring it to me right after the meeting. And just something else I wanted to let you know, the board voted today that we are going to start helping Batesville Help and Hope each month. Our day is going to be the first Wednesday of every month. So on the first Wednesday of every month, we will meet about 5:30 out at Help and Hope, like we did, you know, about a couple months ago. We'll go out and help them that evening get set up, and that will be our day from now on. Does anybody else have anything for the good of Rotary? Okay, if not, we'll end as we always do with the 4-way test of the things that we think, say, or do. Number 1.
Is it the truth?
Number 2.
Is it fair to all concerned?
Number 3.
Will it build goodwill and better friendships?
And number 4.
Will it be beneficial to all concerned?